and things have learnt to walk that ought to crawl.
So I'm located in Akron, Ohio, USA. This happened in maybe 2022 or 2023. I can't exactly remember the year. I'd just gotten home from working late one night. I used to test gas stations and would work late into the night most times. I got home around 2:45, 3 a.m. and let my dogs out to go potty. And when I was standing there, I got the overwhelming sensation to peek around the corner of my house towards my neighbors. So I just barely peeked around the side of my house and looked into their backyard. And then I saw something that truly freaked me out. Like the worst feeling I've ever experienced to date. So for context, it was late into the night and a dark night. Maybe a crescent moon or even a new moon. Either way, very dark outside. So I had stepped back out with my dogs to get my stuff out of my work truck. And while they did their business, I set my stuff inside the side door of my house and walked back outside to them. After they had finished up, I was about to let them back inside. But before I could follow them, I got such an overwhelming feeling that I had to look around the corner of my house to my neighbors. Didn't know why, but felt compelled to do it, so I barely peeked my head around and saw this creature standing inside my neighbor's fenced-in backyard. It was standing at the back of the yard, facing towards the woods behind our houses. So, it had its back towards my neighbor's house, and I was looking at its side profile. It stood maybe 6 to 7 feet tall, pale white skin, but was like bright, like a light was shining on it. But again, it was pitch black outside. I could see it perfectly, like I had shined a flashlight on it. It was very human-like, except it had no clothes on, and was muscular but smooth. Sorry if it's inappropriate, but it's necessary for the description. I could see it from head to toe, and it had no genitalia. Just a smooth body, bright pale skin, and was just standing there, staring into the woods. As I was staring at this in absolute disbelief and shock at what I was seeing, while still hiding behind my house, essentially, it snapped its head toward me and stared directly at me. I didn't get any thoughts in my head besides, run. In a full panic, I ran inside my house, slammed the door behind me, and locked it, just waiting for whatever this creature was to come and get me. I've never felt fear like I did in that moment. I truly thought it would come and get me, and take me or kill me. I've never seen anything like that before or since. So in summary, it was 6 to 7 feet tall, bright pale white skin, muscular but smooth body, completely naked but no clear genitalia. It stood staring into the woods inside the fenced-in backyard at the edge of the yard or fence. Didn't make any movements, besides to snap its face towards me. Closest thing I can find online to what it reminds me of is the creature from Prometheus, but it's still not the same at all. If anyone has any ideas or thoughts, I'm all ears. Would love to know what this was. Thanks. This happened back in February 2024, but I wanted to post this here because it's been bugging me, and I've spotted something watching through my back sliding door at night. It had a white face, kind of round and long, but not like anything I've seen around here. Time I spotted it was around 5:45 p.m. I encountered this thing outside of Myakka State Park, Florida, about a mile from my house. I was walking on a trail back to my house. This is right next to a highway and behind some spaced out houses. Pretty undeveloped part of the area. I was dragging my bike down the trail to the right of me. The trail was long, and went in one direction. There was dense foliage to the left and right of the trail that was on an incline, so impossible to get up quickly. The entrance to the trail was flooded by the hurricane that just hit a few weeks before this happened, but someone had flattened the foliage around the entrance so you could walk through. I had stopped about halfway down when I spotted what looked like something crouched, or standing, I still have no clue, in the tall grass at the flattened part of the foliage. I called out to it, and it didn't respond, so I looked away to grab my knife. And when I looked back, it was gone. I continued pushing forward, and got out to the dead-end road the trail spit out on. And as I stepped out onto the road, I saw something quickly duck behind a tree. I hopped on my bike and hightailed it down the road and away from that area. I sped home about a mile to my house and didn't stop. I'm still very spooked from that, and I refuse to walk the trails near my house because of it. A quick description of the thing. Kinda thin, but broad shoulders like a person, and looked like it was wearing a cloak. Thin appendages, and tall and upright. This is a story that happened to my boyfriend and me 2 years ago. For some, it might not necessarily be scary, but for us, it was quite disturbing. I should point out that I've never reacted to fear the way I did that night. My boyfriend is someone quite fearless and rarely gets scared of anything. We weren't under the influence of drugs or alcohol. We also often go for walks at night and explore neighborhoods, so it wasn't that kind of adrenaline you get when doing something new or dangerous. We live in a quiet suburb in Quebec, where absolutely nothing happens at night, especially in the neighborhood we were in. It was late, probably around 2 a.m., and we were walking through a park. There was a small hill in the distance, and we thought it might be nice to go up and check out the view from the top. We were now on the hill, looking out into the distance, when suddenly something caught my eye. A white mass was at the bottom of the hill. I looked at it with interest, but I couldn't really tell what it was because of the darkness. It definitely wasn't human, that much was clear. It was too big to be a dog, and certainly not any other animal you'd find in Canada. There were only houses around. At that moment, I felt terrified, pure fear. My boyfriend still hadn't noticed what was happening, as all of this happened within a few seconds. Then, I started hearing footsteps, and my boyfriend heard them too. Something was approaching us. It sounded like human footsteps, as if someone was coming towards us. But the white mass was still at the bottom of the hill. It wasn't standing still. It was moving a little, as if searching for something on the ground. But it was coming towards us. My boyfriend noticed I was completely frozen in fear. I couldn't move. He started to see the white mass too, and tried nudging me to snap me out of it. He ended up grabbing my arm, and we ran down the hill. As we were running toward the park exit, we passed by some more trees. The trees blocked our view of the white mass, but once we got past the trees, nothing. No more white figure, no more noise, nothing. We spent the rest of the night anxious, and we even felt like we were being followed on our way home. For some, this little story might seem trivial, but it left a mark on us like nothing else before. We even tear up sometimes when we talk about it, for no apparent reason. We truly felt in danger that night. We're looking for answers or similar experiences, whether rational or out of the ordinary. What do you think? Feel free to ask questions if you want to better understand the context. I'm sharing my experience because I only recently discovered the crawler classification, and at the time of my experience, I couldn't find anything online that matched what I saw. For context, I am and always have been a non-smoker or drinker. Also not on any prescription medication or anything. Being a country girl, I grew up in a farm setting in the valley. I've spent most of my free time out in the wilderness, fishing, camping, 4x4ing, and having bonfires. I've had my fair share of creepy things happen in the woods, but this experience has really stuck with me. I was on my grandmother's property, which is in a very rural location, basically at the end of a dirt road, deep in a valley. On her property, it forks into two, and there is a standard-sized home on the right side, and a few acres across to the left, a small guest cottage that I was living in at the time. I spent years growing up out there myself. I encountered mountain lions, chased bears and coyotes off the property. I would say I was at the time fearless back then. I will never have that confidence in the woods again. My grandmother lived alone, and I was in her cottage. I would walk across the property every evening with a flashlight to check in on her. There was no phone service at our address to make phone calls, so I made a routine of checking in with her before late evening. Since her last family dog passed away, she never had dogs again. And with that came more and more animals coming onto the property. So I'd often run into deer, coyotes, even moose sometimes. I always expected to see something. She has a pond and a creek on her property, so it's basically a water source for everything. I was walking over to her house and would always flash my light into the tree line that goes along my path to check for wildlife. Every night she would see me coming and turn on her outside porch light, and we would meet there for a quick chat before going to bed. There were no noises or signs of anything at all this evening. Usually I could sense if something was around. Hear twigs snap from footsteps, or leaves rustle, or rocks roll down the hill. Birds splashing in the creek or pond. The property was alive with sounds, even into the night usually. But this was a dead silent evening. It would only be this way if a predator was around. I made it to her wooden porch and we had our little chat as usual, and I made my way back towards the cottage for the night. I was about halfway across the property when I just felt like something was watching me. I stopped completely and stayed still for a while. I began shining my flashlight down the driveways on the property, around the cottage, the pond, around my grandmother's house, basically scanning everywhere. I got goosebumps. It was eerie silent and I just knew something was there. I then turned the light to the trees right beside me. About 10 feet away from me, and somewhat behind a pine tree, is this thing. My light first caught the legs. I could see it was a pale and white color with no hair. I couldn't see the feet because it was kind of standing behind the tree, peeking out at me from the side. I thought it was some hairless animal or something at first. It was tall, taller than me easily by 3 or 4 feet. Its head brushed the lowest branches at the base of the huge pine tree. I shined the flashlight at its head as soon as I realized how big this thing was. The first thing I noticed was it had no face or facial features. I was so scared and confused, not being able to make out anything on this thing's head. I was freaking out and frozen in shock. I wondered what it was going to do, but it wouldn't move. I had no way of reading any type of body language or anything with this thing. This thing looked like it was straight out of Silent Hill, and all that was going through my mind was how easily it could dismember me if it wanted to. It was so tall next to the tree that my brain tried to convince me that maybe it was a mountain lion with mange and no tail, with no hair standing upright on his hind legs. Maybe about to climb the tree or something. Absolutely bizarre, but I tried to rationalize it briefly. It didn't take too long to dismiss that idea. It had no eyes, no tail, no ears, no hair, no visible mouth. Yet, it was standing upright and human in shape. After staring at it for another 20 to 30 seconds and telling myself there was no way in hell it was any animal at all, I bolted across the property back to the cottage as fast as I could, basically running for my life. I would still go out at night to check on my grandmother, but only long before dark after that. I still have no idea what it was. I spent countless nights searching the internet for any information, and when I tried to find anything similar online to what I encountered, I didn't find much. My internet searches of faceless white being, faceless entities, only really brought up Slender Man. I never saw the thing again, but a few weeks later, in the middle of the night, something smashed in the glass sliding patio door of the cottage while we were sleeping. That was terrifying. We heard tons of creepy sounds outside the house, and even on the roof at times, but we couldn't figure out what actually happened. We had to use every piece of furniture we had in the cottage to build a barricade where the glass door was. Even after using a makeshift wall of things to cover the hole, we didn't sleep that night. I was so scared that a predator was going to come back and get into the house. We had a 6-month-old baby in the house at the time too. My grandmother had to order a new glass sliding door and frame that would take 2 months to arrive. We had to move out, and I don't live out there anymore, but my grandmother still does. I don't think she will ever leave. I have occasionally considered moving back out there, but I have 2 small children now, and honestly, I get scared thinking about moving back after what happened. We still visit often, but now I can't help but feel like a sort of creepy atmosphere on the property. I always worry about my grandmother, who is still alone out there. Her neighbors are too far from her acreage to see or hear anything that happens at her place. So this recounting is a bit old, as this happened about 12 years ago, in the late summer. I was 17 at the time, and tended to stay up later than one should when school was coming up the following mornings. And as such, I often got saddled with the ever-exciting task of taking my mother's dogs out to do their business. Now, a bit of context. We lived out in a valley in the woods. Not quite middle of nowhere, but you definitely couldn't see any neighbors. And it would be a hike through the forest to reach them on foot, excluding the old road that wound along the bottom of the valley. I worked with my stepfather in a wood shop he had built on the land, and that was what we lived off of, cutting boards, cabinets, wine racks, furniture, etc. We usually sold out of state, as there weren't too many affluent people buying wine racks and end-grain butcher blocks out in the country. We had some big dogs that kept the coyotes and strays away from our chickens. But my mum wanted the cutesy purse dogs. So when I say they were my mum's dogs, that's what I mean. The furballs were yippy little Pomeranians with food aggression and no sense of self-preservation. Regardless, I was the one taking them outside at 2 a.m. Now, normally they would strangle themselves at the ends of their leashes to get down the stairs faster, because they loved running around at odd hours, but this time, I didn't even realize that they had not moved until I was the one tugging on the end of the leash. I looked back up, confused, and again tugged at their leash once or twice to get their attention. But they were stock still. They stood on the first and second step, completely frozen and staring off the side of the stairs and into the center yard. Ears back, no sounds. The only movement was their micro-adjustments when I pulled at their collars. Now, our yard itself had a driveway that ran up to a garage that was connected to the woodshop, and the house ran perpendicular to that, forming a sort of disconnected L shape. With the veritable wall of woods all around that clearing, it formed something almost like a courtyard in the middle. And that was lit at all hours of the night by the woodshop's floodlight. All that to say, it wasn't at all dark, obscured or eerie when I finally followed the line of sight of these two normally excitable dogs. Standing in the middle of the gravel, right in the light and beside our old firewood pile, was something. It looked human at first. It was certainly humanoid. Bipedal, clear head and shoulders, no body hair, completely naked. It was like putting a puzzle together in slow motion. My brain didn't quite realize what it was looking at first, and just assumed human shape. No immediate alarm bells, despite how seeing a naked man standing in our driveway should have triggered something. I blame shock, or maybe the lack of time to process. Either way, in the couple of seconds I stared, I started to pick out all the abnormalities. It didn't look like it had ears or hair, like at all. It was completely bald. That was the first thing I noticed, since it was facing away and slightly diagonal from me. It appeared to be wringing its hands and staring off into the forest past the woodshop's tin roof. It almost looked nervous, though I never saw its face. It didn't appear to have noticed me, or if it had, it didn't seem to care at that point. It wasn't like I was quiet. The front door was anything but silent, and I had clomped down the stairs with all the grace of a drunken moose. Then it was the skin I noticed. It looked pale and bluish, though the color might have just been from the shop light. And it was weirdly shiny, like frog skin or a waterlogged corpse. Then the torso, as my eyes made their way down. It was too short, like the proportions were off, and after registering it, it was also shaped wrong. Have you ever seen a scrawny dog or cat that gets soaked in water or shaved? How their torso is elliptical front to back instead of side to side like a person's? Its torso was shaped like that. It was bony in that same strange way too. Not malnourished, just like an animal. And finally, the thing that kick-started my brain back up. The legs. They bent the wrong way. I apparently would be the person who dies in a horror movie, because my immediate, knee-jerk reaction after staring at this thing was to step off the stairs towards it, squinting as if that would help me understand this biological puzzle before me. The moment my foot hit the ground, its back shot up straight. It reminded me of when a rabbit hears something and just bolts upright with its ears up, scanning for danger. And then, before I could even lift my other foot, it was just gone. No poof, no fade. I didn't even blink my eyes. It just was there one moment and then gone the next. As soon as it was gone, The dogs simply returned to normal and wandered down the stairs to do their business. I'm not sure if it was never a threat, or if the little balls of fur were just especially stupid. I'm not ashamed to say that I may have cut their nighttime stroll a bit shorter than normal that evening. I spent a while just calling it Bunnyman, sticking with the theme of things like Mothman and Slenderman I had come to know. I know, very creative. I had picked the name because between the inverted legs and its mannerism, it had indeed reminded me of a rabbit, with the legs resembling a bunny's haunches. Anyways, I never saw it again after that. I know that's a bit anticlimactic, but I figured I'd share my encounter here. This happened in the UK 11 years ago. I was 14 and with my friend and her sister. A short walk from where they lived was a very long hill that had 2 graveyards either side of the road. It was a summer evening and we decided to walk up the hill. We'd done this a few times before. I'm unsure what time it was, but I'd say around twilight. Just starting to get dark, but light enough to see without a torch. Or flashlight for you American listeners. So we're chatting, walking, having a laugh, etc. We pass both graveyards, and now either side of the road has thick woodland. I saw it first and said, "Who's that?" I could see someone hunched over, digging at the ground. We all hung back a bit, naturally. As we're 14-year-old girls, we were very cautious about strangers, especially somewhere quite remote and out of the way. Doubly more so as it was getting dark. The 3 of us slowly proceeded up the hill, getting closer. Suddenly I realized whatever I was looking at was naked, hunched over, and had abnormally long fingers. It turned to look at us, and it didn't look like it had eyes, just 2 hollow holes. I know what you're thinking. This sounds made up as shit and very cliche. None of us spoke. We didn't even look at each other or make a noise. We just started running back down the hill. Once we got to the bottom, we were all asking each other, what the hell was that? And my friend's sister had fully wet herself. We spoke about this for weeks, and my friend stayed at my house for a sleepover. Coincidentally, we were watching spooky and creepy things on YouTube, and we saw the creepypasta about the rake. When the photo popped up on the screen, we both looked at each other in disbelief. I tried telling my mum, but she insisted I must have seen the rake online before, and thought I saw it in real life, rather than the other way around. 11 years later, we all remember and recall it the same way. I've visited the same hill hundreds of times since, and seen nothing. Nobody ever believes me when I explain what I saw. Probably because it's so cliche, and I was 14. But I know what I saw. I decided today to have a look on Reddit, and I found crawlers. Could that be what I saw? Anyone else from the UK seen something similar? Hello watchers and listeners, thank you all so much for listening. If you have a story you'd like to share with the channel, please send it to my email, which will be found in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, consider signing up for my Patreon, which you can watch my videos ad-free and usually with bonus stories, as well as other perks depending on the level. This year, I will be redesigning my merch store, so keep an eye out for that one. And as always, the biggest thank you is to all of you I truly appreciate all of your support over the last couple of years. And remember,
Papa loves you.